if a bromance is the solution to this modern day rise and problem of male loneliness, what do you believe is the anatomy of a great bromance?
The anatomy of a great bromance. This is interesting. So I'm going to have to lean on my own experiences on this.
Okay.
I think the main thing, well, obviously there's a lot of things, but I think there are two main things. I think obviously time spent together is huge. Like the more time you spend with someone, the more chances you have to like find a connection, and to have what do we call them? Life-changing conversations. Listen to episode 30 of It's Only Up From
31.
Here. 31?
Yeah, I was 31.
So that one was 30. I was 31? I thought this is 31.
No, this is 32.
This is 32. Oh my goodness, my bad. Okay, yes, listen to episode 31.
Yeah.
And so I would say, yeah, so time and conversation, or time to like just facilitate things to happen, because time is like just the great facilitator, because what else is time? Also, by a side note, trying to define time, like, it'll break your brain. It's fantastic. But I think the second thing is, I don't know if the word is like a shared experience or something along the lines of like a shared mission. I think some of my closest bromances have come about in this environment where me and a bro were working towards a similar goal in a kind of a space where like we had no option but just to like talk things out. Exhibit A is right here, like you are, and like we kind of brushed shoulders a little bit at university, but it wasn't until JDC West when like, we actually became bros, right? Same thing with Colin. Actually same thing. I kind of knew him. Actually, my first interaction with him was that I thought he was kind of a jerk. It turned out he was just like really sick. Unfortunately, like I felt so bad afterwards. But he wasn't coming out with the guys at JDC West. He was just like staying in the hotel. I was like, oh, I guess he just doesn't like people. But no, the guy was just fighting for his life.
Yeah.
And then the most recent ones I can think of are like, I was groomsman for a wedding, and me and a few of the groomsmen were like leading the charge on the planning a little bit and some of like the organizing, like where people will be staying, the Airbnbs, because it was in a different city. And again, I think because we were working to the same goal, we were kind of looking at the same thing and trying to figure out ways to do it, and understanding that it just worked better if we were like on the same page. I think a common mission, a common goal, and a lot of time spent together, I think that's really good kindling for a fiery bromance. What about you? What would you say?
Nice. Well, I would say that everything that I have, or that I would think about, is just defines yours a little bit more logically.
Okay.
It's good that you were able to like put experience on it. I would say I have experiences too, but if I were to think about it, I would say that a bromance is built on 4 key pillars. Mm-hmm. And all of these you mentioned in your definition. Okay. So number 1, proximity. As Dunbar said, as all the research states, proximity and basically in-person activities together is crucial. Okay. The frequency of that has a positive correlation to the strength of a bromance. Okay. And I feel like this is one of the biggest reasons as to why, once you graduate and enter the real world, why so many of your friendships, right, end up being with people who you work with, because you're just around them every day. Okay. Not all of them, but so many of them end up being with people that you work with. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say, is timing. Okay. So I think where you two are able to go through the same life stages together, be it getting married within the same, call it, couple of years, having kids, getting career promotions, changing jobs, all these things, if you are able to go through that process in the same reasonable timing as another individual, that's another really big, call it, pour of the gasoline onto the fiery bromance. Okay. number 3 is energy, right? You have to have aligned energy or a common mission, as you said, right? So there's this awesome, do you know Tony Robbins? He's like the OG of like self-development and motivation and all
Great
that stuff.
voice,
So
this guy.
he does. Honestly, at first I was like, what, is something wrong with this guy? But then I was like, oh, this is like a part of his brand.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, he has this super corny saying that where your focus goes, energy flows. Okay. So if you and your fellow bromance individual, if you and your friend are both focusing on the same thing, your energy will flow towards that. And if you have common energy flowing towards the same thing, whether it's, okay, we're both like grinding it out at work. Okay, this is our stage where we're hustling really hard, or we really want to get into the gym. We really want to work on, getting in better shape together, and we're both combined with it. That's why like some of the best bromances are literally gym partners, right? And all these things that attribute to an aligned focus and energy, right? And then I think the fourth one, which is crucial, is if you have those 3, it creates this perfect opportunity and environment to almost break that societal norm or chain and actually be vulnerable and actually include a little bit of emotion. Call it 25% of the entire anatomy is emotion and vulnerability, where you're so close based on these 3 things that you feel comfortable with being like, okay, I need help. I'm struggling. Right. And I think there is a lot of value in understanding what vulnerability looks like. And in my eyes, or actually let me ask you first, what do you think vulnerability in a bromance kind of looks like?
Does vulnerability in bromance look like? I would have to say, man, this is a big question. I'm not sure I have an answer at the tip of my tongue, but something just along the lines of being able to. Because I feel like vulnerability often comes into play when it's going against the expectations of society, and so I think,
Interesting.
yeah, especially in this context, I mean, like, if you can say something that, like, in other contexts you would feel like is not manly or is not okay, then I think that is a way you can showcase vulnerability. For example, if you're willing to, ask for help, if you're willing to discuss, for example, some financial struggles you're having, if you're willing to like get deep on emotions, I think the common trend there is like it's things that society usually doesn't like love bring to the surface. Talking about your mistakes, talking about your deep finances, talking about your emotions. Yeah, I think those are pretty good signals on my side. Is what I would assume.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
close to what you're thinking, or?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much exactly what I was in line or alluding to. So, when you think about the best stories you've ever heard, or, you think about the greatest stories of all time, it often included like the hero's journey, right?
Mhm.
Where, you see someone who was going about their life, maybe they were doing well, and then they get knocked down for some reason, right? They get knocked down off a pedestal, or basically they're in this state of struggle, right? And in that moment, you feel so connected to that story because it's like you're rooting for them to come through that struggle and break through that struggle, right? And arise after, having the emotion and vulnerability to say that you are struggling in some domain of your life, like you said, whether it be your finances or your health or something like that, or even your work or your motivation, I think, or mental health. I think
Mhm. Mhm.
the state of vulnerability of saying that you are struggling almost just signals this critical part of a hero's journey. And then having the courage to overcome that struggle and fight through that and come through it is like the most uplifting thing when it comes to remarkable stories. So I think if we take that element and apply it to this idea of vulnerability, I think vulnerability, especially in a bromance between two guys, it's this perspective of being willing to showcase struggle and almost just like casting out this rod that is, you're hoping that someone comes and grabs it and is just like, you got this, right? You can come through this. I want to witness you come through the hero's journey and come out on the other side. I think the element of making known of your struggle is the baseline of vulnerability, because it opens the door for the encouragement that you may need to come through that. And I think if you have that, that's like the spark on top of all these other aspects to make a perfect bromance something that is truly, life-changing. And if, it's very hard to get yourself in a state of like, loneliness. Keep in mind, I obviously, some people have actual like physiological struggles with this stuff and anxiety and depression and things like that. But I think a huge piece of this is having someone, your fellow man there to like get you through it. And I think these four aspects, be it what I say, proximity, and doing shared activities together, going through the same life stages together and timing, having the same focus and cumulative energy and common mission, and then just this vulnerability by getting through struggle together is like the perfect ingredients in my eyes.
I love that. That is very well said.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that in this episode's article.
There you go. Perfect.
That's the takeaway. And I mean, it'd be interesting to see if there's anything more that you need. Is there anything missing?
I feel like there's nothing more you need. I think, there are other enhancements. There's other things you can like add to the list. Just like similar tastes, I think, is always a good thing, whether it's like in music or interests and things like that. But I don't think that is necessary. I think it's enhancing, but not necessary. I think the necessary ones, I think we covered them.
True. And you know what? I have an interesting hypothesis as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this alludes to this whole idea of struggle. So I think we talked about it in season 1, where it's the How to Not Die Alone episode. So for anyone who is interested, go and listen to that. That was actually our most popular episode in season 1, wasn't it?
After the first one, yeah.
Okay, yeah, after the first one.
Yeah.
But anyways, so in that, we basically came to the conclusion that, the best relationships with a romantic partner is one where you and them are both feel like you are 100% enough, right? And you are both willing and wanting to be in the relationship. You feel loved in that sense. Now, piggybacking off of that, I believe a great bromance is where 75% of the time you feel like you're enough, and 25% of the time you feel like you're not enough. Okay. Hang on. Let me.
You can after, yeah.
I believe that there is some sort of element that being with, your fellow bro, where there's something invigorating about feeling not enough in this interaction, where it's like, if I think about my closest friends, okay, my closest bros, a part of me always feels after I interact with them or after I spend some time with them, like I'm always just like, man, I got to step it up in some sort of domain, right? Whether it's my health or like my verb, like my vocabulary, how I communicate, whether it's my finances or my career, it's like some aspect of it makes me want to be a better man, right? And I think that there's something special about that, because I think that ties to this idea of vulnerability. It's like a part of me is like, I want the struggle. I want that 25% of not feeling like I am there yet, not feeling like I'm finished the hero's journey. And I think that having that type of interaction or communication with a fellow bro, where you're like, okay, I need to step it up because this guy's got something.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's just a hypothesis. 75% of the time, this guy's like, no, you know what? You're crazy. You're doing well. But then 25% of the time, this person's like, look, you got to step it up. Right. Get your shit together. Move on. You know, that's my perspective. What do you think about that?
You know, it's so funny because sometimes I think like I'm the only one who feels certain things, and then it turns out that like everybody, because the same thing. Yeah. Like honestly, like I sometimes look at like my list of like some of my closest friends, and I'm like, man, like these dudes are incredible. You know, like what the
Why
hell
are they
doing
friends
with
with
a
me?
schmuck like me? Exactly. Right. But then also like I can also see how like I can see their impact on me. I can see like sometimes like I have impact on them. Like there's definitely like a give and take. But yeah, like it's just funny that you express this emotion, because like I feel the same way quite often when I talk to like, I'm like, man, you're so smart. Or like, yeah, like you really are like on top of everything. And yeah, just sometimes it's like it's motivating in I think a way that is more common for men than for women. I think if you look at the most like popular motivational creators for men versus women, I think you'll notice something quite different about them. You'll notice that for men, it's often couched in, I don't know if it's inadequacy or something along those lines, but it's often like it's often presented like you should better yourself because you're not there yet.
Yeah.
Versus from what I see on the side of like how women motivational things happen, and it's perhaps not as deep as that. So perhaps I'm missing something and I have a blind spot. But from what I see on that side, it's much more like what's yours will come to you. You know, like it's almost the inverse. It's almost like theirs is attractive versus ours is I guess.
Yeah,
like
it's like
pushing,
it's like you're manifesting the reality that you want.
yeah. Versus I think for us it's much more like driven. Like it's more like get after it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big creators, like I've even heard the phrase like, you know, no one cares, keep working. And this is like on the men's side, right? Like nobody cares, work harder, like just get after it. Like what are you talking about? Don't complain, don't do this and this and this. And I do feel like that has also an impact. Like and like what you were saying just now about how like, you know, your 25% is like you want to feel inadequate a little bit. I do feel like that might be kind of built in to like the male psyche a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I want to dig into that. I feel like in a future episode, it would be great to discuss, actually research and discuss some of the built-in via evolutionary psychology and evolution in general, what the differences are.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting.
I feel like that'd be touching a third rail, and we may talk about some controversial things, but it'd be interesting to see that. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see that. I've been really interested in this whole like evolutionary psychology space over the course of the last little while. It's really cool.